Happy Throwback Thursday. Remember the Steele Dossier proving Trump's ties to Russia? Well, it turns out one of the architects might have committed perjury.
You know, I wish I could tell you I'm tired of winning, Jill, but I'm not tired of winning, and we won't win until we actually punish people like this.
Well, and I'm tired, actually, of federal judges trying to go through and block Donald Trump. A panel went out there and tried to permanently block his Liberation Day tariffs, but that's not the end of the story.
Sometimes you wonder what the Constitution allows the president to do anymore with all these damn judges doing this on a daily basis.
And we bid a fond farewell to Elon Musk's time as a special government employee.
You know, sometimes it's not about the end, it's about the memes we make along the way.
Especially if they're cats and dogs. He was very good at that. Blaze News, The Mandate starts right now. Good evening, Patriots. I'm Jill Savage, joined as always by Blaze News editor-in-chief and a sad sailboat nationalist, Matthew Peterson. You didn't actually get to go out. It was raining here in Texas all Memorial Day.
It was Memorial Day weekend, and we couldn't get out in the water because of these stupid risk of thunderstorms. It's ridiculous, but always next weekend.
There's always another weekend here in Texas. It's going to be hot and humid, so let's take a walk down memory lane for a moment. The Steele Dossier was released 10 days before Trump's first term. They tried to delegitimize him. You remember all this. You know, the claims that he was backed by Russia. Well, if you fast forward to present day, Senator Chuck Grassley has publicized records showing the FBI knew Nellie Ohr was one of the key players in the dossier, lied to Congress, and they didn't prosecute her. So for more, let's bring in our D.C. correspondent, Chris Bedford. So Bedford, when we look at Ohr, what did she play? What role was she playing in the Steele Dossier?
So she played a couple roles in the Steele Dossier. The Steele Dossier was largely based on, or large parts of it were based on, an earlier dossier from Fusion GPS, where she was a Russian expert. She wasn't on staff. She was a contractor with Fusion GPS, and she provided a lot of information. She had emails back and forth with attorneys at the Department of Justice, including with her husband, Bruce Ohr, who was at the Department of Justice, was talking with lawyers about this, was helping to put this information together. And then once that information ended up being used in the Steele Dossier, which is the one that's even more infamous, more broadly speaking, she and her husband, who was at the Department of Justice, kind of served as representatives of this information to DOJ lawyers, to the FBI lawyers. In fact, her husband was a witness for the Department of Justice on the matter until he was judged to be someone who had not disclosed everything, and to be judged to be someone who was unfit for this, couldn't be a reliable witness. Shortly after that, around that time, he was taken off of that case, and then he was demoted until he was eventually let go. And he, the whole time, claimed, Bruce did, that he had spousal protective privileges. He wasn't going to say anything that could potentially implicate his spouse, which is, of course, many of the different things that they were doing absolutely would have. But she didn't take that privilege. Instead, she claimed that she didn't have anywhere near the contacts she did. We now know from the FBI's files released by Chuck Grassley that they knew all of this information. They knew that she'd lied, and the Department of Justice decided not to prosecute. Now, that is worth noting even more specifically because this is the same time that they were prosecuting people like Roger Stone and other Trump associates for having lied before Congress and for perjury and things like that, or lying to the Department of Justice. So they were actively going after Trump associates who were guilty of this crime, and at the same time actively ignoring associates, anti-Trump associates, and relations of the Department of Justice who are committing the same sorts of acts. The whole thing about the Russiagate has been a lie and a ruse and total corruption and essentially a soft coup that failed. The whole thing from start to finish. And I've been reporting on it for years and years. I know I've forgotten far more names than I can still remember on Russiagate and all the different things pulling back and forth for 8 years now. And every week, it seems like we learn something new that confirms all of your worst suspicions from day one. All of the, even it gets even nastier and even uglier than you could have expected. It's more people are conflicted, more people are in relations with each other. It's one of the dirtiest scandals in modern American political history.
Yes, all that true and being said, there's one problem here, which is that no one gets punished for any of this. And I mean, is there any realistic path for any of these players to be punished in any way? Or do you have any thoughts about what DOJ should do now? Because I think this really demoralizes a lot of people in America who want to see some kind of justice for really what should be one of the greatest scandals in American history.
I think the DOJ ought to look into prosecution for lying. You can't commit perjury. You're not allowed to, even if you're the wife of a former attorney for the Department of Justice. These aren't weapons that need to be invented. This is not weaponizing the legal system. This is using the legal system in a way that is compatible with the way the legal system was used under the previous president, the way the legal system was weaponized against President Trump. And that was to go after Trump's associates. This is to go after the people who actually did weaponize the government, who actually put us in a place where half of the American public, or even more, sorry, that's a baby you might hear squealing in the background. I'm on nanny duty right now. Where half the people in the country no longer trust the Department of Justice. That's a real problem. When Abraham Lincoln's first speech, you're well versed in this, Matt, at the Lyceum, talked about the extreme danger to a Republican system of government when the God-fearing, law-abiding people no longer trust that the law will be applied to the people who are already lawless and disregard our institutions. That means that everybody ends up losing faith in this system, and it becomes extremely dangerous for maintaining a free and prosperous republic and keeping us from each other's throats.
Well, listen, it's DC, so there's always a power grab behind the scenes. Right now, baby Josephine is trying to grab the power away from this. But the battle that we're going to focus on
this week. It's wonderful.
The battle that we're going to focus on, though, is the House Oversight, because it's one of the most powerful seats in Congress, right? Rep. Jerry Conley just recently passed away. So take us through all of this power grab and who we think the front runners are that might take over.
Absolutely. You've got 4 contenders right now to lead this important committee, and the Oversight Committee is important. The ranking member of the Democratic Party is going to be getting a lot of television time, going to get a lot of airtime, and their job is, in the limited capacity that the power that the party that doesn't have legislative power and doesn't have executive power is able to wield, is in oversight when Congress actually does its job and wants to actually do these, as opposed to kind of the Republican strategy method of simply holding hearings and then going on television to brag about them and fundraise. You can do real damage with this position. So who they pick actually matters, and it's somewhat a signal of where the party is going. One of my favorite guys on here, one of the 4 candidates, is Stephen Lynch. He's a Democrat from Massachusetts. He's born in South Boston in a project, the youngest of 6, Catholic family. His father was an iron worker. This guy is straight out of The Departed, or more like Good Will Hunting, actually, because he followed his father into becoming an iron worker. And then he rose to be the youngest president of their union at age 30 before leaving to study law at college. He had a couple run-ins with the law himself before this. He got arrested for smoking dope at a Willie Nelson concert. He got arrested for beating up Iranian students who were hosting an America. You know what? I'm just going to bring her on here for a second.
Yes, I've been waiting. Give the people what they want, Bedford.
Here we go. Let's give the people what they want. He got arrested for beating up Iranian students holding an anti-America protest. Like, this guy seems like he's straight out of a Boston movie. And he's a Democrat when he ran for office in the first place because he didn't like that gay groups were forcing their way into the St. Patrick's Day March, a Catholic parade for children. And then had a similarly socially conservative record when he was in the State House of Massachusetts, the State Senate of Massachusetts. And then we came to Congress on a pro-life agenda, who was also pro-traditional marriage. But like so many Democrats whose districts have changed, South Boston does not look like it did when I was a kid growing up. It's all condos now. It's wealthy. It's a lot of yuppies. You'll see the latest gay flag there. And he moved the Democratic Party. He voted with Joe Biden 100% of the time. He raises money for Planned Parenthood and things like that. But Democrats, activists still hate him because of his past. It's just being a classic Massachusetts old school Democrat politician. But he this is a committee that really takes care of the seniority. That's why you have people die in office. Remember, AOC ran for this office in December, and she lost it. And she didn't even try running this time because she said all they care about is seniority. So he's the acting ranking member, and he's got a good beat on being able to be the next ranking member of Oversight. Then you have Kwasi Mafumi, who was born Frizzell Gerard Tate. He comes from a working class background, a poor background, grew up in Baltimore in a rough neighborhood, was involved with gangs, or at least hung out with them when he was a kid. It's kind of hard to go outside and not get involved with that when you're a kid in a neighborhood that's overrun by gangs. He's been in Congress for a very long time. Since the early 1990s, actually he came in when Ronald Reagan was in his second term. And in the early 1990s was already chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. Then he left to be president of the NAACP. So this guy is just a race warrior. He's got all of the traditional insider power DC bracket to how to get political influence, especially amongst Black Americans. He's checked every one of those boxes. And then he came back to Congress, and he's even a little bit older, born in the 1940s, but he's someone who should be taken seriously because of his backing by the Congressional Black Caucus. Then you've got another member of the CBC, Jasmine Crockett, who, if she didn't exist, conservative media would have to invent her. I was trying to figure out with you guys yesterday, how exactly did she become famous again? I'm pretty sure it was a fight over nails and body type and bleach blonding hair with Marjorie Taylor Greene in a committee hearing. Like, this woman is absolutely wild. She's an overt racist. She's threatened violence repeatedly, whether it's against Elon Musk or Ted Cruz. She's a wild woman, but she's when the base is really active for a fight, she's been providing that, and she's not been saying we need to be quiet in front of Donald Trump. And so she's someone who actually could be a contender still without that seniority. If AOC couldn't get it, Jasmine Crockett doesn't have her credentials. And then finally, you've got Robert Garcia. The first time you might have heard of this guy, unless you've got the terrible luck to live in his district in California, was when this atheist, married to a man, perfectly progressive record, born in Peru, like literally not even born in this country, congressman, took his oath of office, not on the Bible, which even Thomas Jefferson took an oath on the Bible. He didn't do that. Instead, he took his oath on an original copy of the Superman comic and a picture of his parents. So it's kind of a strange guy. I guess he gets all the progressive cred. AOC and those types like him more than anyone else because he's the type who really wants to back their sweeping agenda, their Medicaid for all, their Green New Deal. He's totally on board with every progressive cause in a way that the CBC and Jasmine Crockett and the rest really aren't. So he's an interesting guy to watch in general for the future of where the Democrats are going, although he's got a more difficult track to winning here than the rest.
Well, Chris, whatever microphone you have, I want, because somehow you use it and it takes away the baby's crying so we can't hear it. And yet we still get to see the baby. And what a wonderful daughter. This girl is going places. She's just having a great time.
She is. She's ready for prime time.
Baby Josephine, all the segments. She is absolutely welcome here on the show. Bedford, thanks so much. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you then.
Yeah, baby Josephine can come on the show whenever she wants. She is not a distraction. She is absolutely welcome. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. Oh, there is something great to keep you entertained. I don't know that there's going to be the baby in it, but there is a story about grit, redemption, and old-fashioned family values. It's on the big screen. You don't want to miss it. It comes from Angel Studios. You know them from The Sound of Freedom and The King of Kings. Now they have The Last Rodeo. It's an action-packed story of a retired rodeo legend who straps back in for one last ride to risk it all to save his grandson. Now he's the oldest rider to ever enter the arena. And this movie is about healing broken bonds, facing the past, and proving that real courage means fighting for the people that you love. It's raw, it's heartfelt, and actually theaters right now are selling out fast. So hurry up and order your tickets now. You can go to angel.com/Jill to grab your seats for The Last Rodeo. It's in theaters right now. Get your tickets today at angel.com/Jill. That's angel.com/Jill. Last night, a New York panel of 3 federal judges composed of Reagan, Obama, and Trump appointees blocked a wide range of President Trump's tariffs, including those against China. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt condemned the ruling as judicial overreach.
3 judges of the U.S. Court of International Trade disagreed and brazenly abused their judicial power to usurp the authority of President Trump to stop him from carrying out the mandate that the American people gave him. These judges failed to acknowledge that the President of the United States has core foreign affairs powers and authority given to him by Congress to protect the United States economy and national security. Congress had created the National Emergency Act to provide the congressional framework to strike down improper IEEPA use. And any questions over whether President Trump improperly imposed these IEEPA tariffs were already adjudicated in Congress following Liberation Day.
There is a silver lining. Late this afternoon, a federal appeals court has temporarily delayed the court order that blocked these tariffs, reinstating them, at least for the time being. BlazeTV host of Conservative Review, Daniel Horowitz, is here with more. So, Daniel, when we see these judges jumping in every single day, trying to block what President Trump is doing, how long are we going to have to deal with stuff like this?
Until we make it stop. I mean, if we make it clear that any utterance of a judge, no matter the issue, no matter the standing, whatever they say is universally binding on the country, self-executing on other independent branches of government, well, he who laughs last laughs best. And if they get the final decision, then there's quite literally no point in having elections. And, you know, Jill, it's important to remember it's not just federal. People say, well, narrow majority, filibuster, this and that. Well, in the red states, too, if we actually elected conservatives, we don't. So we don't have this problem too often. But the few times we do pass good legislation, it gets struck down in the courts, too. So I think the time has come for a mixture of both delegitimizing the premise that this is the system of government we adopted, but also to work in must-pass bills in Congress, they got to do jurisdiction stripping. Otherwise, we're really going to be left with nothing.
Yeah, Daniel, speaking of judges, there's another story out there in Massachusetts. You have another federal judge blocking Trump from suspending Biden's migrant parole program. So, we have a Massachusetts-based judge able to dictate U.S. foreign policy. What do you think the administration should do? I mean, there's reports out there that they, in the case of the tariffs, they want them to actually, this court to take up the matter to make sure the tariffs stay in place. But what is your take on what they should do to combat this?
It's either ignore or codify in court. What I disagree with is a strategy that the Supreme Court is fundamentally going to be there for us. Yes, obviously they're putting everything into court, even things that they know they're going to lose, but that forces Roberts to use his strikes on his scorecard, in favor of Trump on nebulous things so that he could rule against him on the core fundamentals. You might win here or there, but you're going to have to do something big. I want to point out that it depends on the issue in terms of how much clout a court inherently has. Are they dealing with criminal proceedings, which a court has more power over that? Are they trying to place a negative and a positive action? Are they trying to mandate an affirmative action on a negative? So here's a great example. Another, let's take that Massachusetts case. That judge said they have to continue processing those people in the pipeline. Well, judges don't give work permits. And that's an executive function. So you're not just placing a negative, you're mandating they take affirmative policy. Trump swore an oath to the Constitution. Trump is not allowed to give out visas and legal documents to people that do not deserve them pursuant to law. So he cannot do that. Another case, to the point, it was yesterday, 2 days ago, a federal judge said that HHS had to leave up on their website certain studies about transgenders and transgender care. Again, I mean, they don't control the websites. That's something the executive branch does. You just don't do it. And I'll give you an example of where this was done, even where the courts have much stronger power. The ultimate power of a court is to grant relief to someone in criminal proceedings. A Florida judge ruled that the state cannot criminalize illegal presence at a state level. The Attorney General, James Othmeyer, sent a memo to the judge and Florida Highway Patrol and said, you have no power to bind people that aren't parties to the case. It was just my office, not Florida Highway Patrol. So therefore, guess what? I'm ordering them to continue. The Tampa Bay Times reports that 25 individuals have been arrested after she issued that injunction. So he was able to take an affirmative action against the order. Certainly, Trump could start by at least just declining to affirmatively take down stuff from websites or process certain visas.
Well, when it comes to the courts trying to override Trump's policies, I don't know if you saw this or not today, but Stephen Miller had a great tweet. He put out that it's the end of democracy if it's not reversed. Do you agree with that? Is he going too far? Give me your take on what Stephen Miller put out today.
Well, as you all know, my first book, Stolen Sovereignty, I mean, it's been the end of democracy for a long time. The notion that we don't have three co-equal branches of government, but in fact, the unelected branch stands atop the food chain. That's a big problem. We have this is not what our founders fought for. And look, I say this as someone who doesn't really like some of the trade policies. But again, we can't have the court setting the tariff rates. So he's absolutely right about that. But I would also say that at some point, again, either Trump as the greatest celebrity and most powerful man could at least hold the ground that a no-name Florida attorney general could hold. Or if you're too scared to do that for whatever reason, you got to demand, for example, that they pass Chip Roy's amendment to the judiciary part of budget reconciliation that takes courts out of things like review of deportations. One of the two has to give. Otherwise, 90% of what they do is going to be, sidelined, and maybe other stuff will eventually get a Supreme Court ruling in a few years.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, as everyone realizes now, and I think some of us, yourself included, have realized for a long time, Roberts and these people who at their best, say that they're trying to save the court or care about the court are destroying its reputation in an accelerated fashion in real time. And it's very hard politically to see how this doesn't resolve soon. But let's move on to other stuff. H-1Bs. Daniel, you wrote a piece for the Blaze.com. Everyone should go and read that, about the promise of putting American workers first. And of course, we all know the H-1B program was sold as a way to import all these brilliant people that we so desperately need. And you point out that it's become something else instead.
No, exactly. No American may apply. Basically, we've cut out the lower rungs of entry-level jobs that no American could graduate in an array of fields and find a job. This was indefensible a decade ago when Trump railed against it. This is one of his core agenda items. Now, with everyone agreeing, that Wall Street Journal is reporting every day that Americans nobody could find jobs in tech. There's a big problems. Some blame it on AI, other reasons. But the point is, there sure as heck is no, demand or need for more foreign workers. It was believable enough to say we won't pick lettuce. Then it was every blue collar job. Then it's every gray collar job and truck driving. And now it's, computers, anything in tech, medical jobs. Someone from Erie, Pennsylvania sent me from Gannon University a master's degree graduation, master's degree program in computers. 64 out of 65 graduates were Indians. It's not natural. It makes no sense. The Trump administration has done a great job going after the subversive element of visas, the pro-Hamas, and now they're talking about the Chinese, which is very important. The one gaping hole is re-upping the legacy of the first term where they started to go after H-1Bs. They just approved 120,000 more H-1Bs for 2026. These are futuristic things that don't even have jobs attached to them. It just makes no sense. And also, they're picked out of a random lottery. So part of what they were proposing last time, which I wish they would reimpose, is rather than a race to the bottom of seeing who could pay less, prioritizing it based on who pays the most. And then you'll see if there really is a need for it. There's a number of other reforms I mentioned, obviously the OPT program, where they allow all these foreign students to stay indefinitely and work at all the entry-level jobs. Guess what? They don't have to pay payroll taxes for those people. So there is no way an American can get a job in these programs. I would just say this is the one gaping hole in the Trump visa agenda, which has gotten progressively better the last few weeks. And I would hope that there's some focus, if not ending it, at least reforming it. Because remember, as bad as the courts are about terminating status for those already here, the fact that you could just not bring in new people, that has already been adjudicated.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I have to say, I do want to give credit out where it's due, where Secretary of State Marco Rubio keeps on doing great stuff, saying we're going to stop this with the Chinese coming in. We're going to look at how these universities are bringing all these foreign students. Great stuff, but you point out is so important, because if we don't change that incentive structure, none of this changes. And that's why we like Daniel. He's always going to the structural changes we need. So on that note, I'm curious just to take your temperature on red states. Red state, blue states. One of our most important issues that we used to talk about, in Blaze News Tonight before it became the mandate, was what's going on in red state America. And this is really part of the Trump agenda, and the victory would be to make these states, let's say, more red, because as we know and talk about, a lot of these red state leaders are pretty terrible. What have you seen, say, since November in red state America? Do you see some good changes? Do you see the same old stuff? What's your big picture take?
So it's actually interesting. In some smaller states where we were doing really badly, we've improved. South Dakota, Wyoming, you have freedom caucuses that took over the House chambers there, and they were able to pass a lot of good bills. Wyoming has a terrible governor, but he was forced to sign, or at least allow some good bills to become law. Wyoming, actually, we killed anti-campus carry. So gun-free zones is gone in Wyoming, became the first state that, thanks to the Freedom Caucus takeover there. But then bizarrely, the two most important largest states, Florida and Texas, you have the Florida House and the Texas House that essentially just gave control to the Democrats. I mean, in our flagship in Texas, you have Speaker Burrows that has blocked every good bill, focused on one school choice bill, and even then threw in $10 billion to the teachers unions to public schools, and then brought up a bunch of Democrat bills, gave them de facto co-chairmanships. And then you have in Florida, the Florida House Speaker going to war with the governor there. Heck, I'm sure you guys saw that Florida dominates all of the immigration enforcement. They have more immigration enforcement than all the states combined. They were going to block that bill that gave the governor the authorities, and he had to fight them on that campaign against them. It's bad. I mean, Matt, it's bad. A lot of these guys maybe they shed their outward skin and put on a MAGA hat, but they're the same corporatists at heart. They want the cheap labor. They want the marijuana cartel there. In Texas, frankly, I don't even know. I don't even understand how you could win the biggest mandate ever in state government and do what they did. So we have a lot more to do. And I will just say that there are a lot of candidates that are now, you have some of these Freedom Caucus guys that want to run for governor. This is very pivotal. Most red state governorships, Texas, Florida, South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, all these states are up in this cycle or next year. And I think this is really where it's important for Trump to not allow Chris LaCivita, Susie Wiles, who often have certain clients or donors that are hooked in with establishment candidates, and just endorse them just because they have the money, the name ID, or they're incumbents. He's got to change direction, at a minimum, stay out. Better yet, endorse the challengers, endorse the grassroots candidates, those who stood by him from day one.
There's still a long ways to go, but we're not blackpilling, Daniel Horowitz. We're not going to do it. Not quite yet. Until those wheels fall off, we still have at least a little bit of hope. Daniel, thanks so much.
Really enjoyed it. Take care.
All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. Listen, we know we're winning right now, right? Even if we need a primary or two, it's okay. We're going to go through. We have the momentum. It's shifting. And that's why Blaze TV exists, because we need to keep pushing. We need to make sure that the red states get redder and have all the bold voices speaking out. So when you subscribe, you're not just watching Blaze TV, you're standing with the movement. And it's $8 a month when you use the code BNT at checkout. So go to blazetv.com/BNT right now. Use that promo code BNT to save $20 off an annual plan. Let's keep winning together. It's Blaze TV, unfiltered, unafraid, on demand. Well, anymore these days, it feels like we're living in a sci-fi movie. Since Joe Biden is a fossil, it's been up to the Trump administration to cultivate technologies like AI and cryptocurrency. So here to gaze into the future is Claire Morrell. She's a fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center and the author of Tech Exit. So Claire, thanks so much for joining us here in studio today. It's great to finally meet you in person. I look at this, there's so much that's happening in the Trump administration right now, right? We cover this every single day on the show, but what do you think they need to do in regards to technology?
Yeah, we have reached a point where I think we are about to encounter a civilizational crisis, in the sense that children growing up on smartphones and social media are being stunted in their development from progressing towards adulthood. We have a loneliness epidemic, a rising mental health rates among teenagers, but just even other issues with screens causing just dysregulation in nervous systems of children. It is clearly the smartphone childhood has not been good for our country. And so this administration is well poised, even with existing laws, to try to protect our children online. So the Federal Trade Commission could be more aggressive in enforcing our unfair and deceptive trade practices acts against social media platforms who know these things are harmful to children from their own internal studies, but they market them to children. They understand that if they don't hook these kids young, then they lose out on that potential profit. And so just enforcing our existing laws, the Federal Trade Commission could do a lot to ensure that young children under the age of 13 aren't even getting on social media. That's another law in their tool belt. The Children Online Privacy Protection Act, known as COPPA, says that you can't collect data on kids under 13 without a parent's consent. Yet we know 8 to 12-year-olds are all over Instagram and TikTok. So I'm excited to see what this administration does with those laws that we already have on the books.
So my understanding is that the Maha report actually talked about screens. Is that right?
Yeah, it did. It had actually an entire section. Part 3 of the report was all about screens and documenting the effect of screens on children's sleep, on the decline in activity and outdoor play, how children are now sitting on screens, contributing to this rise in obesity and conditions like diabetes and heart disease. And so it's what the screens are replacing. And then also the report touches on the connection with the mental health epidemic that we're seeing, the amount of loneliness, anxiety, depression, self-harm, and suicide that have just skyrocketed among teenagers just the last several years. So I'm excited. I think that the Maha report is just the first step. The next step is they will be actually coming out with recommendations. And I think that the Health and Human Services Agency is really well poised to have a strong public awareness campaign telling parents, listen, do not give smartphones and social media to your kids. And so I'm excited about the Maha report and what's to come.
And that's all about humanality. We had you on the show before. We talked about this a little bit. So remind people what that is.
Yeah, so humanality is really encouraging. This is a movement that has taken off across college campuses where college students are voluntarily giving up their smartphones. They recognize for themselves that this is not helping them have good relationships. It's reducing their attention spans and their focus, and they're really reclaiming their humanity and re-engaging with reality. That's the mission of humanality by opting out together. And so it's encouraging because it's not just individuals, but they're doing this in clubs. They're doing this together. And instead of being on screens, then they're actually spending time in person. So it's providing that powerful real world relationships, experiences that they're really looking for. And so you can find out more about this movement at humanality.org. They're trying to also encourage families to adopt this lifestyle, so not just college students. And so it's really exciting.
It really is incredible. I mean, I guess technically I'm on the advisory board. All right, I try to help all of you do that. But it's incredible the testimonials from that, where you have young people in college who are purposely coming, forward and excited about getting off the screens, and it's indicative to me that I think that they understand the problem better than a lot of the rest of us.
Yeah, they've experienced it firsthand. And I hope that this would even just be really a word to parents to say that if the college students are recognizing this themselves, you don't need to give your kid a smartphone. They are better off without it. The fact that they're even coming to that realization themselves.
So you have written a book here.
Yeah.
The Tech Exit, a practical guide to freeing kids and teens from smartphones. That's got to be a topic that millions of people are interested in. So what's in this book?
Yeah, I hope so. And so the message of this book is that it is possible to give your kids a smartphone-free childhood. And not only is it possible, but it is positive that saying no to screens is saying so much more to real life in the real world. And that so many families, hundreds of families, have done this successfully, navigated the teen years, and they say it was one of the best parenting decisions that they made. And so the book practically walks through step by step how to give your kids a smartphone-free childhood, how to detox from screens if you've already given these things to your kids. It's never too late to reverse course. And the book offers countless examples to give parents the hope and courage they need to exit these technologies for their kids.
If you're trying to make a happy, successful childhood, which I know everybody's, it's hard to do, but think about weekends that you spend on your phone. Do you remember that? There are no memories that are made. So if you're trying to give your child, the best effort here at putting them forth into the real world, getting them off the smartphones is going to be so important. Where can people pick up this book?
Yes, you can go to thetechexit.com, can buy it wherever books are sold, and you can follow my work at clairemorel.substack.com, where I'll continue to put out resources. And the book website will also have a discussion guide, so parents, don't be the only family to do this. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, your church members, parents at your school, and do this together. And you can read the book together using that discussion guide.
Claire, thanks so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. MP?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to read this. I think it could actually be helpful.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you again soon. Thanks so much for stopping by. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. They say all good things must come to an end. Elon Musk's time as a special government employee has sadly come to an end. So I asked you this question on X today. How will you remember Elon's time in the government? Will it be goodbye forever? Let's get to some of the replies. Jay Breezy comes in first and says he truly saw how deep and dark the swamp goes, even if those on your side suck and do not want the grift to ever end, right? He knows how bad it is. That's what Jay Breezy is trying to say right now.
I think Jay Breezy is right. I mean, he found out by going there and confronting the deep state to the face and dealing with Republicans. And I think he is a smart guy and he's learned a lot from it.
Phil replied that Elon should be given the Presidential Medal of Honor for his work that he did with DOGE. He uncovered more corruption in a very short period of time than anyone would have thought. Now it's time for Congress to step up. You can repeat that every single day and make sure that his work doesn't go to waste. I mean, yes, amen. I think that Elon deserves all of that.
Yeah, he does deserve that and more. We don't want him to go away, as we'll say in a bit. But, I think that the main culprit here that everyone's pointing to is a good one and the right one, and it is Congress. Congress has a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do to make Congress great again.
Hammer wraps up the replies and says, I think Elon is seeing what most of us have known all along, and that's that it's one big uniparty in Washington, and we are not in it, right? We're not invited to the party. Nobody wants the actual movement of conservatism to move forward. At least if you're in Congress, that's the fight that we're seeing right now play out in D.C., MP.
Yeah, the best people in D.C. are the people who've come with the administration who really don't care about that party at all. In fact, they want to oppose it. And you can't be neutral on this. You have to come in and go, I don't care about any of this, and I'm here to change things. And I don't, let them, uniparty be damned. I don't care. The whole point is to smash it. And unless you're in that mode, you will fail.
I look back at just all of the interviews that Elon Musk did and how much, like they were saying, he uncovered so much. And people were like, wait a minute, we still do things like that, like from the 1950s, like that's how we're doing things in 2025. And it took somebody like Elon to come through and say, hey, by the way, everything is old. We need to update all of the systems. And it's funny, we were talking in the hallway yesterday with somebody who's going to be going on another show here at BlazeTV. And this person was saying, I've been in DC and I've seen firsthand just how messed up everything was. He said people in the Biden administration, they knew that Donald Trump was going to come in, right? And they were trying to go through. And he said they rewired everything to make it harder for the Trump administration to come in. He said that basically when you flip the light switch, the dishwasher would start. And they did this on purpose. And I think that is the that's the mentality that you have to look at, that this is what they are trying to fight. And if it's not going to be somebody that is as talented as an Elon Musk and the people that are in Trump's cabinet right now that are actually true believers and actually trying to get something done, you could just go on with business as usual in Washington, D.C., like they've done, right? We've had these old systems, like they've been saying, since the 1950s. What has been done to update it until right now?
Yeah, and it's in a way even worse than that. So the Biden administration, and we need to report more on this. I mean, they purposely tried to rewire things to make it more difficult for the Trump administration coming in. But then these agencies have been there for decades and decades and decades. And what all they do is build a structure that's impossible, right? Or to tamper with. That's their job. They want to make sure that they have jobs for life, that they increase their power. So they look at, administrations coming and going as if that's temporary. That's fleeting. We're building something that exists, will exist for 100 years. And that's in many cases or more, right? We have some of these agencies around. So the problem is vast, it's huge, and it's the problem afflicting American government. I mean, the cancer on the Constitution is the administrative state. The tumor, in the American government and the federal system is the administrative state that has metastasized and is now out of control. No president, Republican or Democrat, has been able to tame it post-World War II. It simply hasn't happened. All Reagan did is, at least he was able to slow down some growth. So what do you do about that? Well, we had a very rare situation in which someone with no political experience from business, right? Donald Trump became president, and that had never happened before. And then we had Elon Musk sort of joining as a super friend since the assassination attempt. He helps get Donald Trump elected, and then he walks in and he creates DOGE. DOGE was not this fly-by-night thing. It was smart. They took an existing government agency. That's where the money hooks up to the computer. And a very important place to be. He realizes that. And they did some amazing things. And along the way, think about the celebrity status almost of Musk and Trump. These are world historical figures doing great things together. And DOGE became one of the most popular government agencies that we've ever seen in anyone's lifetime. It's still exceedingly popular. States trying to copy DOGE. So I know that Elon's busy. I know there's a lot going on, but I just refuse to believe that he's really walking away. That can't happen. I think he has to stay involved in many ways if he's going to have a chance to go to Mars. I think that he knows that in his heart. And, I don't think this is the end. And if it is the end, I'm not going to refuse to believe it. That would be to black pill. And one thing you should never do is black pill. Only good things in the future. So if Elon, if you're listening, this can't be the end. You're still going to be around. You're still going to do great things. This cannot end.
Anyone that's trying to make federal spending cuts cool, it's okay by me. By far, yes. Please keep going. This cannot be the end. MP, when you look back at your time with the best friend duo, as you say, what stands out to you about Elon on the political stage that we've seen him take up?
Well, I think what you just said is one of the most striking things that not enough people are talking about, which is that, that's why I said it's sort of the celebrity stature that he has. He did make these things cool and interesting. I mean, you really did have millions of Americans going, what the hell? And look, politicians are boring. They've been talking about, how we need spending cuts and how we waste money on all this stuff for a long time. But what Musk did, and through DOGE, is turned a meme into something very serious. And, was able to issue reports that could get real results and that focus people's attention. And it sort of made it difficult for the left to just hit Trump over and over and over again, when all of a sudden you got Vance there, now Rubio rising, and then you also had Musk in the room. It lended a lot of credibility and power to the administration. So again, I don't think this should ever fully end. He's very much needed to keep this going, and he's very good at media, actually. Obviously he's a smart guy. He brought in a bunch of really smart guys. I don't know how anyone can watch the interviews of these guys and what they were doing and say, oh, this was bad for America. It's a losing battle to argue that what they were doing was bad. So this was all W's, and we need more W's, and we need the W's to increase, not subside.
And we will continue to list 5 things that we've done this week. He has made that cool as well, which I always love some productivity.
And I think that without Elon purchasing Twitter, of course, is the first thing, changing Twitter to X. Without Twitter becoming X and Elon buying it, you have a real free speech problem, and it's not clear how the message gets out. And then you also have his actual financial support, but then just his media support of just coming out of that day of the assassination and saying, damn it, I support Donald Trump for president of the United States. All of those things did a lot of good. But here's the thing. The election was an existential crisis, but it wasn't just about averting the danger of the totalitarian government that was about to increase in America. It's also about actually confronting and solving the problem. That's why we like Elon. He tries to solve problems. That's how he runs his business. He just goes directly to the problem and tries to confront and solve it. And we can't lose that spirit in this administration, or it won't have been for nothing, but it'll be the biggest missed opportunity of our lifetime.
And Elon, he's just like us. He loves a good happy hour on Fridays.
Yes. We're still going to join you, Elon, for happy hour sometime soon.
We're going to make that happen in D.C. because he's not done. He can't go away. It can't be over. The best friends, they have to stay together. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow night.